The rain had not stopped for 3 days. Beneath the stone arches of Hensley Manor, Eleanor Whitby scrubbed the marble floors until her reflection shivered in the soap water. The candles in the corridor burned low, their golden light bending across her pale face. Upstairs, laughter spilled from the Duke's drawing room. Young lords speaking of politics, of horses, of the grand masquerade to come. Ella's hands were red and raw, but her mind drifted to the melody of the piano that floated down the staircase like a ghost of a dream. Lord Nathaniel Harrow appeared suddenly, stepping into the corridor with the careless elegance of privilege. He nearly collided with Ella, his boots splashing through her bucket. "Watch yourself," he muttered, not cruelly but without looking at her. Ella bowed her head, biting back her words. As he disappeared up the stairs, she whispered under her breath, "One day, you'll look down and see what you've stepped on." But no one heard, except the Duke, who watched from the landing above, his eyes thoughtful. Outside, thunder rolled across the countryside, shaking the chandeliers. In that tremor of light and shadow, the world seemed to whisper, "Your time will come." The morning after the storm, the air smelled of rain and polished silver. Ella moved silently through the drawing room, resetting the Duke's table with fine china. Every cup she touched had been sipped by a world she could never enter. When the bell rang from upstairs, Mrs. Cray's voice echoed sharply, "Whitby, to the linen room, quickly." Ella hurried, her footsteps barely audible on the carpet. In the hallway, she passed a newspaper lying open. "Grand Masquerade announced. Invitation only." She stared for a heartbeat too long. In the linen room, Mrs. Cray barked orders with the precision of a sergeant. "Faster, girl, faster. These sheets won't fold themselves." But there was no malice in her tone. "Between commands," she muttered softly, "they'll be choosing the serving staff for the masquerade tonight. You've earned a chance, Ella." The maid froze mid-fold, the crisp fabric trembling in her hands. "Me? At the ball?" Mrs. Cray's eyes met hers, fierce but kind. "Not as a guest, child. As what we are. But remember, sometimes the kitchen door opens wider than the front gate." Upstairs, Nathaniel lounged in the Duke's study, swirling brandy in a crystal glass. "So, this ball of yours," he said, smirking, "will it bring out England's finest or merely its richest?" The Duke's eyes drifted toward the rain-washed window. "Sometimes, Lord Harrow, the finest are hidden in plain sight." Nathaniel laughed lightly, unaware of the double meaning. "Then I shall keep my eyes open." That night, as the rest of the manor slept, Ella lingered in the ballroom doorway. The chandeliers were unlit, the floor gleamed like still water. She stepped forward slowly, her bare feet silent on the marble. In the silence, she imagined music, laughter, the sweep of silk. For a single heartbeat, she raised her chin and moved as she might, if she belonged here. The moment was fragile, perfect, and broken by the sound of footsteps behind her. The manor hummed with anticipation. Servants polished silver until their arms ached, florists arrived with carriages full of lilies, and the scent of beeswax and roses filled the air. Ella worked among them, her expression serene, though her heart thundered. Mrs. Cray directed the chaos like a general at war, her voice echoing through the grand hall. From the upper balcony, Nathaniel watched the preparations with idle amusement. "All this for masks and waltzes," he murmured to the Duke beside him. "And yet," replied the Duke quietly, "behind every mask lies the truth people fear to show. Below them." Ella adjusted the velvet drapery, unaware of the noble gaze upon her. In the dressing quarters, bolts of silk and boxes of lace spilled across the floor. The seamstress measured the noble ladies for gowns, while the maids carried pins and fabrics. Ella slipped in quietly to deliver freshly pressed linens, but Lady Cassandra's sharp eyes found her. "Careful with that, girl," she said, lips curved in disdain. "These fabrics cost more than your year's wage." Ella nodded. But as she turned to leave, Cassandra added sweetly, "Perhaps one day you'll have a dress like this, if the Duke hosts a masquerade for the help." Laughter fluttered around the room like cruel wind chimes. Ella lowered her eyes, her cheeks burning, but said nothing. That afternoon, the Duke summoned Ella to his study. She entered nervously, wiping flour from her hands onto her apron. "You've served this household faithfully," he began, turning an envelope in his fingers. "Tomorrow night, you will not serve. You will attend." Ella blinked, certain she had misheard. "My lord, forgive me." "Attend," he smiled faintly. "Us, my ward. For one night only, no titles, no ranks. You will wear this." He handed her a small box. Inside, a silver mask gleamed like moonlight. "The world will not know your name, Miss Whitby, but they will see you." Ella's breath trembled. "But why?" The Duke's eyes softened. "Because I owe your father that much." That evening, Ella sat in her small attic room, staring at the mask on her bed. The rain had returned, tapping softly on the window pane. In the cracked mirror beside her, she caught sight of her reflection. Tired eyes, calloused hands, a girl shaped by duty. Slowly, she lifted the mask, tracing its silver edges. For the first time, she wondered who she might be if no one knew her place. Downstairs, laughter echoed from the servants' hall. Mrs. Cray entered quietly and placed a folded gown on the bed. Soft blue silk, trimmed with lace. "It was mine once," she said gruffly. "Before I forgot how to dream. Wear it well, child." On the night before the ball, Nathaniel walked the moonlit gardens alone. The air was heavy with the scent of rain-drenched roses. His mind turned, unbidden, to the maid he'd seen in the corridor, the one who met his arrogance with silence. There had been something in her eyes that unsettled him, though he couldn't name it. He stopped by the fountain and glanced at his reflection in the water. A ball of masks," he murmured. "Perhaps I'll find someone who sees beyond mine." Behind him in the shadows near the servant's wing, Ella watched from the window, unseen. The moonlight traced their mirrored isolation. Two souls unaware that their worlds were already beginning to collide. The night of the masquerade arrived like the turning of a century. Every candle in Hensley Manor blazed. Every window glittered with reflection. Carriages lined the drive, their wheels hissing against the wet gravel. Inside, 1,000 silks whispered against marble as lords and ladies filled the ballroom beneath a galaxy of chandeliers. Behind the servant door, Ella stood trembling. Mrs. Cray's hands steadied her shoulders. "Head high, child. Tonight, no one knows your name but God." Ella nodded, her heart pounding like a drum. When the clock struck 8, she stepped through the door. The room turned as one. Conversation faltered. The orchestra stilled. A single note of awe moved through the air like a prayer. Nathaniel had been mid-toast when silence fell. His gaze followed the room's collective awe until it found her. The woman in silver. Something ancient and electric sparked in his chest. He didn't recognize her, yet he did. The curve of her jaw, the grace of her hands, it stirred a memory of candlelight and soap water. But this was no maid. This was a vision drawn from music itself. The Duke approached, smiling faintly. "Lord Harrow, meet Miss Whitby, my ward." Nathaniel bowed slightly, every trace of arrogance gone. "An honor, Miss Whitby." Her voice, calm but trembling, replied, "And yours, my lord." When she looked up, their eyes met, and the world's noise returned all at once. The orchestra began again, and Nathaniel offered his hand. "May I?" he asked. Ella hesitated only a breath before taking it. The first waltz rose like a tide, and they moved together. Her steps light, his measured and sure. Around them, whispers began to coil through the room. "Who is she?" "The Duke's ward. Never seen her before." Lady Cassandra watched from the edge of the floor, her smile tightening. As the pair spun beneath the chandeliers, Nathaniel felt a strange clarity, as though the night itself had lifted its mask. For the first time, he wasn't dancing for society's gaze, but for truth he didn't yet understand. When the waltz ended, Nathaniel escorted Ella to the veranda overlooking the gardens. The cool air brushed against her face, carrying the scent of rain-soaked roses. "Forgive my curiosity," he said softly. "I feel as though I've met you before." She smiled faintly. "Perhaps you have, my lord, though not where you would expect." He studied her expression. The confidence beneath her calm, the way moonlight softened the silver of her mask. "You speak as though you've known both shadow and light," he murmured. "Don't we all?" she replied. Inside, the orchestra began another song, but Nathaniel did not move to return. Back inside, whispers spread like wildfire. Lady Cassandra's eyes narrowed as she watched Nathaniel return with the mysterious woman. "The Duke's ward, is she?" she muttered. "Or a nobody in disguise?" Approaching the Duke, she curtsied sweetly. "What a lovely girl! How fortunate for her to rise so quickly." The Duke met her gaze with calm gravity. "Some rise because they've earned it, my lady. Others because the world cannot keep them hidden forever." As Ella crossed the ballroom once more, every candle seemed to lean toward her light, and somewhere deep within the marble walls, the ghosts of Hensley Manor seemed to sigh in approval. The ballroom shimmered like a dream stretched too thin. Midnight approached, and the guests gathered for the unmasking, a tradition of revelation and spectacle. The Duke stood before the crowd, his voice calm but commanding. "At the stroke of 12, truth shall greet the room," he said. Laughter and anticipation rippled through the hall. Nathaniel stood beside Ella, still unaware of her secret. "You've made quite the impression," he murmured. "I should warn you, after tonight, London will speak of nothing else." She smiled faintly. "Let them." Her gloved hand brushed his as the first chime echoed through the hall. Around them, masks began to fall. As the 12th bell struck, Lady Cassandra seized her moment. "How curious," she said, her voice carrying above the fading chimes. "A lady of such mystery, yet no one seems to know her family name." The crowd stirred, whispering. Cassandra stepped forward, eyes gleaming. "Tell us, Miss Whitby, where did the Duke find such refinement? Or was it taught between scrubbing floors? The silence that followed was sharp as glass." Nathaniel turned to Ella, confusion shadowing his features. She stood very still. "Is it true?" he asked quietly. "You're a maid." Her voice trembled but held. "I was. For you all, every day. Until tonight." The orchestra had fallen silent. The Duke stepped forward, his expression unreadable. "That will do, Lady Vale," he said softly, yet his voice carried the weight of authority. Turning to Ella, he continued, "Miss Whitby has served this house with honor, and was once daughter to a man whose scholarship preserved this estate's legacy." Cassandra's smile faltered. "Then, why hide her?" The Duke's eyes were calm. "Because nobility is not inherited, my lady. It is proven." Murmurs rippled through the room. Nathaniel stood motionless, torn between pride and shame. For the first time, Ella looked him squarely in the eye. "Now you see me," she whispered. Nathaniel stepped closer, his voice low but fierce. "You deceived me." Ella's eyes glistened. "Would you have listened if I'd told you who I was?" The space between them felt unbearable. Around them, the murmurs of society swelled like a rising tide. "You're clever, Miss Whitby," he said bitterly. "You wore a mask long before tonight." She inhaled sharply, her composure trembling. "So did you, my lord. Only yours was called pride." Then she turned away. Her footsteps echoed across the marble as she left the ballroom, each one sounding like a door closing. Nathaniel didn't follow. Outside, rain had returned, steady and cold. Ella walked alone through the gardens, the silver gown heavy with water, her mask clutched tightly. Behind her, music resumed faintly, as if the world continued without her. From the ballroom window, Nathaniel watched her fade into the mist, his own reflection staring back, half hidden, half haunted. The Duke appeared beside him. "You see her now for what she is," he said quietly. Nathaniel's voice cracked. "Yes, and I see myself for what I am." The Duke nodded once. "Then perhaps there's hope for both of you yet."